question, I would not be sitting here talking to you right now because there would be no reason for it. So there, we've criticized by creating, turn this anger, energy into positive energy, into inspiration. Then I'm starting to come back to life. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, if I've got a problem with this situation, I got to fix it myself. So I'm going to start a company. I'm going to start a brand. And we're going to sell it first in the US because I'm going to do reverse colonialism on my people. If the only time they can respect something is if the West has said, oh, now we welcome it, then I'm going to trick you the same way, hoping that the next generation that comes after you, luckily for them, they won't need that type of validation because they were born in a world in which they were just fine.
That's smart. That's smart business right there. That's smart business. Sometimes you got to trick them. Hey, that's the same thing we used to do. Have to do the airplane for the kids when they wouldn't eat the food. Oh, we hold a chicken wing up in their face, and as soon as they about to bite the chicken, we take that baby food, put it right in their mouth. Sometimes you got to trick people that you love in order for them to eat, man. That's just how it is. I don't make the rules.
Because they were born in a world in which they were just fine, in a world in which they were the it people, right? So, but this is a detour I need to take. Let's take it. So with that, I just became very galvanized. And so we started this business, and my whole thing was, I'm going to start a brand. I don't want to start an NGO telling people, you should respect Africans, or you should respect this ingredient, or these poor women are losing. No, build a brand, because brands have such a power to influence culture. And I was dealing here with a cultural issue first and foremost. And so build a company, hire people back home, and make the brand pop in the US. And then you have your virtual circle where the jobs are created back home and your culture also takes its rightful place at the table. And that's exactly what we did. I started this company in my kitchen, and eventually, by the time you look around, you have on my board Roger Enrico, the ex-chairman of PepsiCo. You have a gentleman who started, Sobe, that was sold to Pepsi, and then also Odwalla, which was sold to Coca-Cola. So all of these who's who of the business of the beverage world were sitting at my table helping me run this company. Again, something like this, I could never have done this if I was not in this country. So this is where we are now. But
see, and that's the thing right there. What she did, that's what a lot of people come here and do. I mean, they do that often. They will start a company here and run it back, and bring all of their family, friends, whoever from their country that can keep the business running. Because I never understood how they were able to do it, but she just now described how she did it extremely well. How she got it to work in US. The US gave us some validation, and they jumped on it, and they decided to run it, and she was able to keep them working and make more and more and more and more, employ a lot more people from back home while making money in the States. And it just, I guess that capitalism was working. They was providing a service, and they was providing some value to the country, and the country was providing, and they was providing the people, and it was going like that. So that's very smart. Very, very smart. Extremely intelligent. Okay. Because she's an intelligent woman.
Never have done this if I was not in this country. So this is where we are now. But you know what, Jordan, then what happened there? I was starting to get my answers. Because as we built this company, the sister company was based in Senegal, and it was mostly for the supply chain side. And then another sister company was built in the US for more marketing, R&D, sales, and the sales channels. That's what the sister company was doing. And would you know that as I was building this company, at least back then, it would take you a quick 20 minutes, maybe faster, depending on how fast you type, to establish an LLC online. Compare that to the almost 2 years it took me to legally register the sister company in Senegal.
Right. So let's just focus on that for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're comparing 20 minutes to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then you have to ask yourself, and I'm sure you have, is how much time and energy do people have? Like, it's not an easy thing to set up a business. It's a daring thing, and there's a tremendous amount of risk involved, and you'll probably fail. That's the risk side of it. Now, you might succeed beyond your wildest dreams, but if you exhaust all your hardworking and entrepreneurial people by forcing them to jump through idiot hoops nonstop, all that you do is keep people absolutely impoverished. And so we've got a key issue with regard to poverty right here, which is the presence of a stunning amount of unnecessary red tape. So how is it, do you think, that the US has managed to make it so that you can register a company in 20 minutes, whereas in Senegal it takes 2 years? And you know, I read a great book called The Mystery of Capital, Hernando de Soto.
De Soto, I was going to bring him up.
Yeah, De Soto's great, man. That's a great book.
Yes.
And he points out that in some of the so-called developing countries, especially the more corrupt ones, not only does it take multiple years to do anything at all legally, but by the time you jump through all the hoops to do it legally, the laws have been changed so that what you do is no longer valid.
That is absolutely the case. So you're asking me a very good question. And the way I will go about that is I'm going to try to take this opportunity to debunk a myth. Because this whole conversation with you, I take it as my opportunity to debunk so many myths about African poverty. Hence, what would it take for to build African prosperity? Because I'm not interested in alleviating poverty. I'm not interested in just like, oh, can I be a little bit less poor? No, I want to be prosperous.
I like the way she thinks, bro. I really do. Okay, let's get to it because she's about to debunk some stuff and I'm here for it.
Just like, oh, can I be a little bit less poor? No, I want to be prosperous. I think my people, like anybody else, should be prosperous. So,
yes, and we should also point out, let's point out very clearly, since we're debunking myths, that that's actually a high ethical aim, is that we want life more abundant for everyone. We don't want to limp along, lowering our carbon footprint, barely scraping the surface. We want people to be prosperous and free and life to be abundant and everyone to have enough educational resources and to thrive. And that's the ethical aim. That's right, to thrive.
To thrive. Human flourishing. To me, it starts and it ends with it. Human flourishing. Now, what it means for somebody to flourish, it's going to be up to them to decide. But should everybody have access to human flourishing? You betcha. So here, going back to the question and why the U.S. and in Africa not, and then Hernando de Soto making the case that oftentimes corrupt countries make it so hard. So there, the myth that I debunk is so often, you know, I talk to people and they're like, oh, Africa, these countries, this region is so corrupt. And I'm like.
And that's all I hear. That's all I hear. Everything about, listen. People say all the time that, okay, go to Africa if you want. They corrupt as I don't know what over there. I want to hear what you got to say about that.
And they're like, oh, Africa, these countries, this region is so corrupt. And I'm like, yes, my country might be corrupt, almost as bad as Chicago. You know what I mean by that. So corruption is, if you will, everywhere. But the way it manifests itself is different from place to place. And so I would like to argue on the order and the relationship between corruption and these laws that Hernando de Soto was talking about. The more they corrupt and the more you have to jump through hoops and everything. I like to argue that corruption is a cause of senseless laws, is a cause too many laws and also senseless laws. When you have those together, then you breed corruption. Give you an example. This is another example that we had to go through. My current company is a skincare company. Skin is skin. So for that, we have to import some ingredients because if you don't have you need the inputs that you need at the standard of quality that you need them in order to remain competitive in your marketplace. My marketplace is the United States. That's where the people have the money to spend all of this, to spend on our products. They understand our products. This is just, it's one of the best markets for us for many different reasons. We sell at places like Whole Foods Market. I don't have to tell you, it's one of the most beautiful chains of grocery stores in the US. You can imagine that the buyers are super sophisticated and they don't just bring any product in that chain, but they bring us. So, which tells you the level of standard we're playing at with world class. So it means that everything behind the scene has to be world-class. The whole chain up and down has to be world-class. And so ingredients, no different. So we had to bring in some ingredients. Well, guess what, Jordan? For some of my ingredients, the tariff is 45% to enter the country. 45%.
OMG.
Others,
Jeez.
almost 70%. How do you expect me to be competitive if you're slapping such tariff on some of my inputs? How?
I didn't think that they. Wow. I don't know why I thought that if they were getting it directly from, their own region, that they will have like a connect or something like that where they will pay far less than what they would pay here. I'm certain for per product they was paying a lot less, but I didn't know that they was getting taxed that much for them to be able to do business here. And honestly, I don't particularly look at that as that bad of a thing, because if you're going to do business in the U.S., you should have to pay something. But we'll get back to that later.
Because for every 50 cents you add on tariffs, I have to sell my products $2 more than I would have in order for me to actually make it. I become very uncompetitive very quickly, quality for quality, product for product. So there we had to, so now, if instead of making it a 45%, how about maybe it's a 0% like it is in the US? If I had to bring the same product here in the US, 0% tariff on it. Or make it 5% or 2%, 3%, something that makes sense. So then do you really think that I'm going to try to jump through the hoops of avoiding that 45% or that 70%? There's no need. Pay it and move on, because you've got better things to do. Mm-hmm. See how bad laws and senseless laws breed corruption, because people will then, it is cheaper and faster for people to pay the bribe and move on than to adhere to the law. You see? So that's what we have inherited in most African nations. As I noticed, the discrepancy and the difference between doing business back home and doing business in the United States. At first, I was like, oh, well, of course it's like this. It's just because, we're a poor nation, we're messed up, and that's why everything else is messed up. And then eventually, I started to really think about it, to think it through. And it's around the same time that God, again, brought some interesting people in my life. Because at that time, my company, my first company at least, was, now I had moved into the nonprofit. We had started a nonprofit because my goal was, how can I help replicate whatever success I was able to have? How can I help many other magats or my male counterparts from Africa do exactly what I did with whatever product they deemed to do it with? How could I help with that? And it is during that journey that I eventually even learned about the work of Hernando de Soto. And when I heard about his work, he was right there telling me, Magat, what you went through, what you're going through, experientially speaking, is not an anecdote. This is something very systemic about this. And it is called economic freedom. How easy or hard it is to do a business. You have indexes that measure this. The most known of them being the Doing Business Index ranking of the World Bank. And then you have a Fraser Institute Economic Freedom Index as well, and others and others. Well, what do they all have in common? They all show you one after the other that it is harder to do business in anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa than it is anywhere in Scandinavia. And I take Scandinavia purposely because people who are anti-business, they need to know that Scandinavia is more business friendly, is more pro-capitalist, I'll use the dirty word, than almost any sub-Saharan African nation. And there...
Right, and so the Scandinavian choice is a very interesting one, because the rabid and idiot anti-capitalists of the West often point to Scandinavia as socialist countries. But as you point out, they're socialist on the edges and capitalist at the core, and in a very, very effective and efficient manner. And so they are business friendly in precisely the manner that you described. And those principles that you elucidated, minimum necessary laws, that's part of the English common law tradition. Yep. Minimum necessary force of enforcement, that's another good one.
Yep.
And what is it?
Clear,
I think this was Montaigne.
And you also have clear and transferable property rights And you also have the concept of a rule of law as well.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. At this point, I am a fly on the wall, and I'm just listening to what they're saying. I'm enjoying it. Hopefully you are as well, because this right here is really teaching me. It's schooling the hell out of me. Hopefully you're getting something from it, because I'm sure I've misconstrued some things with my statements, probably made statements too soon, and then they cleared them up later, because they are far more advanced when it comes to a bunch of things than I am. So I'm just a fly on the wall. If you're just wondering, you're not wondering. Okay, then since you're not wondering.
Right. So those are some of the metaphysical and legislative substrates that make a free enterprise system possible. Because people often also think about only the market working, but you need a set of regulations and also customs that the free market can run on top of, like an operating system.
Exactly. And I love that you're using the word operating system, because this is going to take us to something else. But before we go any further, I want to point that as I was learning from the work of people like Hernando de Soto, as I was learning from people like the man who became my husband, I like to joke and say, he brought me the answer to my little girl's question. I rewarded him with love, so I married him. As I was looking at the work of people like him, Michael Strong, people like John Mackey of Whole Foods Market, they're friends, so that's how I got to know John. But they made me really get into a whole nother world of people who truly care. But what was different about these people is that they cared not on their own terms. They cared, but on the terms of the truth. And we might go into that at some point, but let me just keep it there. So,
wow, that's going to be good. That's going to be good. Not on their own terms, but they cared on truth. Wow, this is going to be good right here.
Of the truth. And we might go into that at some point, but let me just keep it there. So what happened in that time of my life, as I was trying to see how can I multiply my whatever success, I found out the answer. I started to connect the dots, and I learned that eventually, wow. So you're poor because you have no money because no source of income. A source of income for most of us is a job. Where do jobs come from? The private sector, businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises. Then shouldn't we think about the environment of those businesses in which they get to thrive or not? I think we do. But then when I look there and I look at these indexes, they're all telling me one thing and one thing only is, your region is the poorest in the world because it happens to be the most overregulated in the world, meaning that as many people fight for freedom and supposedly fight for Africa's rights, no one thought about one of the most important of rights and freedoms after you have managed human rights in its global way, economic freedom.
Well, you list here in one of your articles where you make reference to these rating systems,
Economic
the
freedom.
bottom 10 countries.
Wow. Hold on. All right. So now we're about to go into economic freedom. And that's what she meant by people who are not active in truth and not their own personal goals and whatnot. Okay. So we're about to get to the people now, because in the beginning of the video, in the beginning of the first video that we checked out, where she was discussing when she first came here and when she was crazy successful at the age of 24, 25 years old, already making six figures, living near Google. Already had her own, purchased her own home and everything. She was doing very well. That's when she realized that she could live the American dream, but she had something similar to a panic attack that pretty much reminded her that she needed to go back and provide those same opportunities to people in her country. All right, so now we're about to get into economic freedom. All right, we got 1, 2, 3. We got 3 more segments. That one right there is where we'll end for this one. But I do want to hear what y'all got to say about this in the comments below. And if you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I'm Van, and now we are all the LFR family. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully inside the Patreon as well. We do plan on finishing this one out. Hopefully I see y'all on the next one. I think this one will be this will be episode 3. Okay, this is episode 3, so I look forward to seeing you all on episode 4. Okay, all right, let's get it going, man. This is a fantastic conversation, and you started it with me, and hopefully you can finish it with me. All right, see y'all next time.